Hi, my name is Jeff Raz. I've been a clown for over 40 years, but I didn't really want to be a clown when I started. When I was a teenager, I started as a juggler, and I loved juggling, and then I learned some acrobatics. But clowning didn't seem cool, and when you're a teenager, that's pretty important. I was taking an acrobatics class in San Francisco, and I kept getting there a little earlier every day. I was take the bus over, I'd take the earlier bus, because there was a guy named Bill Irwin who was a wonderful clown who was teaching before my acrobatics class. And I was so interested, I'd come and I'd pretend to stretch, but I was watching how Bill would teach it and watching how the students would learn. And that, I think, was the beginning of me being interested in being a clown and being seeped in the history of clowning and all the possibilities of what a clown can do in the world. When I was 14, I learned how to juggle. And it was the first thing I could do that I could actually do. And when you're 14 and you find something that you learn pretty fast and it comes easily, and it just, when you're juggling, it makes you feel whole and human, that's exciting. And that's what juggling was for me when I was 14. I started performing at a Renaissance fair. So dressed up in tights and funny little bloomers and a shirt to make you, or a smock to make it look like it's Elizabethan England, and a terrible British accent, and I would juggle. And my very first job was for the Pie Man. He made these special pies with meat inside that people ate, and he hired me for the price of a pie to bring customers in. So I was 15 by then, and I was a pretty good juggler, and I would juggle out in front of his stand, and I would call people to eat the pies. And I set a goal for myself that I would get 100 customers before I would eat my lunch, my pie. And the first day, it was taking me a while to get 100 customers. There were a lot of people there, but 100 people is a lot of people for lunch, for a pie. So I was at 73 or something, and he came out and he said, here's your pie. I said, I haven't gotten 100 yet. And he goes, no, here's your pie. It's your lunchtime. I realized then that there's such a thing as too much juggling. And I love juggling. I enjoyed it, and it really was something that lit me up, that nothing before had lit me up like that. And I could juggle, practice 6 hours a day, and I would perform on the streets, and it was a love. I fell in love with it. But at some point, after I'd been performing for a while and working in circuses and doing acrobatics, I started to feel like I wasn't as good as I wanted to be. That there was something about the interaction with an audience that I didn't know. So I went to theater school. I went to Dell'Arte International, which is an international school, but it's in Northern California in a tiny town called Blue Lake. And they taught a history of physical theater and how to use your body to interact with an audience through different kinds of characters, with masks on, clown characters. And I have to tell you, when I was at school, I didn't understand much, and I was not very good. But I took a lot of notes, and I tried really hard. And when I got out of school and started going around trying different types of theater, I would read over the notes, and that was when I started to learn. I'm sure that was frustrating for my teachers, but it was good for me because it took me a while to learn, but I got there. As a matter of fact, along the way, I did an audition, my very first audition for a play, and I was still in school. I came down, I took the bus down from Blue Lake to San Francisco to do this audition, and I finished the audition. I was pretty sure it didn't go that well because the director, who was the only other person in the room, didn't have a good look on his face. And then when I finished, he stared at me for a little bit, and then he said, "You're not getting this job. You're terrible. As a matter of fact, you're so bad you should never perform again. You have no chance for a career." And he went on and on. Luckily, I walked out of there, and I was young enough, and I had performed enough that instead of going, "Oh no," I thought, "Really? I'm going to show you. And that kind of way of looking at it helped me to get through the next period, which was hard, trying to get into shows and become a professional actor, as well as a professional clown and juggler and acrobat. I've thought a lot about the challenges and the joys of having a career as a clown. And one of the challenges is when you say that, hey, I'm a clown, people get a bunch of different images in their mind, maybe that come from watching certain movies or seeing certain ideas played out in popular theater, popular culture. So that isn't really what clowning is about, and so I have to sometimes explain things to people. The joys are many. The main joy is interacting with an audience, connecting with an audience, talking with an audience, whether you're using words or your body. And lately I've been trying to perform where the audience does most of the performing, where I get someone up on stage and I give them a framework, like I'm going to do an acrobatics act with them, a simple acrobatics act that's safe. But I ask them, how are we going to warm up? And whatever they do, I'll do it. I've had some great things, like a number of times I remember this one young woman I got up, she was about 7 or 8, and I said, well, we're going to do an acrobatics act. She said, oh yeah. And I said, how are we going to warm up? She goes, like this. And she drops into a perfect splits. And I can't do a perfect splits anymore. Honestly, I never could do a perfect splits. But the joy was me trying to, and her looking at me and helping me, and the audience fell in love with this little girl. I've had a chance in the last few years to think a lot about what it was like over these 40 years to be a clown. And I've gotten to write about it. I've written a couple of novels. One of them is this. It's called The Secret Life of Clowns. And this one, I got to write about two things at once. When I was touring with Cirque du Soleil, and at the same time I ran a school for professional clowns. So it gave me a chance to think a lot about what it means to learn to be a clown, and then what it means to actually be a professional clown in front of thousands of people every day while you're still learning. That was a joy to write, and that was another joy of being a clown, sitting and writing, which you don't think of as clowning. I have another book I wrote called The Snow Clown, and that came from an earlier time when I used to tour up to Alaska in the middle of winter in little planes and go to tiny villages, Yupik villages, and we'd arrive on a Monday or a Sunday night and teach the kids all day, and then we'd do a show for the whole village. There was only 300, 400 people in the village, so it's in their gym. Almost everyone would come. There wasn't a lot of clown shows that they got to attend. And then we would teach the kids all week, and then at the end of the week, the kids would do a show. And I loved that time, and it was also hard. It was cold, but it was also hard because there was culture clashes going on between these Yupik Eskimos who were Americans and their teachers from Arizona or Texas who were Americans also. But woof, there was trouble. And then we were coming in from California teaching circus, and how did that fit in with the people who already were living there and their culture? The book also, The Snow Clown, has a section when I used to go to Nebraska, and I was working not so much as a clown, but more as a playwright and an actor. And Nebraska seemed as strange to me, a guy from Berkeley, California, as Alaska did. I love to play. That's what I do. I love to play. But sometimes not everybody wants to play with me. And that makes me really sad. But sometimes I can get people to play with me. And that makes me really, really happy. Playing a mask, which is what I was just doing. It's called playing a mask, because it's such a playful way of performing. And that mask could be like the mask I had on, which is a Commedia dell'arte mask, something I learned when I was at school at Dell'Arte International. And now I teach quite often. So I was playing that mask. The character was also talking about playing, because the joy of clowning and Commedia dell'arte is you're always interacting with the audience. Even though just now I was pretending to interact because I'm really taping this on my phone, I can still feel the play. I can still feel playful and feel the play coming back. So play is the core of clowning. It's the same impulse as when two kids look at each other and go, "I'm going to get you." And the other one goes, "No, you're not." That was this invitation to play. And then they're off into another world. It's the beginning of any story. Once upon a time is an invitation to come play in my world. And clowns are artists of play. We architect, we create the structure for play between an audience and the stage. There's a specific type of clowning that I've done over the last 10 years called medical clowning, or sometimes healthcare clowning. And that usually involves going into a hospital and playing with everyone there. The nurses, the doctors, the patients, the families, the bus drivers bringing people there, the EMTs dropping someone off. Everybody could use a little moment of play, and it's usually a small moment of play, a moment that has to be mutually agreed upon. Because as you can imagine, sometimes in a hospital, playing's not what needs to happen right now. So a medical clown needs to know how to invite someone to play and how to accept, no, it's not playtime, and say, the fact that they could tell me that, they could say no, gives that patient power, or that nurse or that family member power. And I, as the clown, can take that and say, I'm out of here, I'm gone. And that idea that a no is as good as a yes becomes a wonderful tool for playing. There's a couple other rules about playing. One of them is it has to be agreed upon. Both people need to agree. And if not, playing becomes something else. And it's not always healthy or good, what playing where only one person has agreed. Also, both people who are playing have to agree not to really hurt the other one. And you can play some tough games. Playing doesn't have to be sweet. It can be tough if that's how you feel, but no one can get hurt in that play. And then when you come out of that, you're connected still. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, I would like to become a clown or any other kind of performer, or maybe you already are a student or even professional working as a performer, you might want to think about a few things that I've found over the years. One of them is you're always going to need to be changing and looking at your place in the world and looking at the place of your type of performance. And that's never more true than right now, where it's not safe for people to get together in theaters. So what does performing even mean? As scary as these times are, that's a great question to ask anytime. What does performing mean? What am I doing here? Why am I going out on that stage or into that hospital or onto that street corner? On a very practical sense, I would say to anybody who wants to make a career as a performer to work on the tools. Fall in love with them like I fell in love with juggling. It doesn't have to be juggling, but it may be singing, dancing, using your voice in wonderful ways, using your body in wonderful ways, magic. Whatever the tools are, learn them, and learn them well. And learn how to keep growing with those tools over a long time. If you're lucky, you'll fall in love with the profession like I have. I'm still excited about all the different complexities of clowning, as much as I was 40 years ago. It's just things have changed, and I get to change with them. Also, here's an idea. As you're learning the tools, use them creatively. Try to grow your skills and your creativity at the same time. Now, that might not be possible always, but one way is to do shows, little shows, a lot. When I ran a school for professional clowns called the Clown Conservatory, the students did a show every 5 weeks. The first show they did, they'd only been there for 5 weeks. They would usually be a little mad at me. They would say, Jeff, we don't have anything to offer. You haven't taught us any acts. And I'd say, yeah, you're right. This is not really about them enjoying the show, the audience. You need them to tell you what's working. They weren't always happy with that. But the truth was, when the audience arrived, I would tell the audience that I said, we've only been going 5 weeks. We really need you badly because you're part of the equation. With clowning, there's 2 parts of a conversation, the clowns and the audience. And that has to go both ways. And more than just about any other performing arts, clowning is about the relationship with an audience. It's hard to have a relationship if you don't have an audience. So we would get those audiences in, and I recommend that for you. Find an opportunity and then listen to your audience. A good clown can, of course, feel and understand the different kinds of laughter, but you also understand the different kinds of quiet. You can look at an audience. I always make sure I can see my audience so I can see how they're moving, feel and hear how they're breathing, because it's a conversation. And just like when you're having a conversation with somebody sitting across a dinner table, it's not just the words, it's everything. And your energy has to go back and forth. The final thing I would say, if you're considering a career, or if you're in the middle of a career in the world of performing of any kind, enjoy the people around you. Tap into their creativity. Ask them questions. Get people to teach you things and tell about their lives, and listen, because you may be sharing the same profession, but their lives have been really different than yours. And notice how your life has affected their life, how their life might affect your life. Be part of a great community and try to make that community sustainable over the years and inclusive. Maybe look for the people who aren't able to get into that community. Be curious about them and see if you can bring other people in, even people who you seem very different from you or you may not like at first. The arts are a beautiful place to explore hard feelings, good feelings, but to explore together as a community.